Hello, everybody. Nope, that didn't work out. Hello, everybody. My name is Reiko. You can call me an illustrator or your Affinity Designer bestie. Either way, today I'm here to talk to you about art challenges on Instagram. Personally, I love to take part in art challenges on Instagram. I think they are a great way to build your portfolio, to work on new designs for products that you want to sell, to meet and discover new artists, and they're also a great way to continue posting consistently so that you can keep the algorithm happy. Now, in order for me to make an art challenge a success, there's a few things that I like to do. For one, I like it when I get the art challenge prompts ahead of time, because then I can kind of prep it before the challenge starts so I'm not scrambling during the month or time frame that a challenge is happening. The second thing that I like to do is I like to kind of create a theme for myself. So if I'm doing a pattern challenge, sometimes I'll create a color palette theme for me to stick with for all of the prompts. And if I'm doing a different kind of challenge, then I usually decide if I'm going to only work on greeting card designs or repeat patterns or something else, like it could be animal characters as well. The third thing that I like to do is I like to pick challenges where I think the time frame works for me. Personally, I've learned that daily art challenges don't really work. I can't really push things out on a daily basis, but I do like the ones that are kind of every 3 or 4 days or every week. So now that you've decided which art challenge you'd like to participate in, you're probably looking at the prompts and thinking to yourself, where on earth do I start? I totally get that. I have looked at art challenge prompts before and will sometimes be like, I have no idea what I'm going to do for this, but let's work on the easy ones first. So what I did recently was I actually documented my process from thinking of the idea all the way to the final design that I posted. And I thought I'd share that journey with you in case it helps you get past some of those prompts that totally stump you. So let's switch over to VoiceOver Reiko so that I can take you through that design process. Here I am at the beginning of this art challenge design process. I know the art challenge that I want to do, and now I've turned to the Creative Project Planner to get some ideas out of my head and onto paper. This project planner is actually one that I created. I wanted a place where I could write down some ideas, but then also have a place to sketch out some initial ideas so I can remind myself of the direction that I had in mind. It's actually available to purchase on Amazon KDP if you want to grab your own copy. Anyways, the best tip that I can share with you at this point of the process is to write down everything that comes to your mind when you see the art challenge prompt. And I mean everything. Eventually, you'll end up coming across an idea that really, really excites you, which is a pretty good sign that you've probably found the design idea to continue with. I'm currently working on the prompt called Sweet Delivery for the Puppy Love Art Challenge. Now, I went through a couple of ideas in my mind. One of them were dogs playing fetch with some candy. But then I started writing down more ideas for the prompt and decided to continue with a concept inspired by the scene in Dumbo where the storks are delivering the baby animals. But instead, I'm going to have them delivering little puppies. Now, before I get started with my sketches, I need to look for some reference photos because I want to include illustrations of different types of puppies, and I want a better idea as to how to draw them, mostly in that side profile position or in the position of them peeking out of the little cloth carrier. This is the next tip that I want to share. Don't be afraid to look up reference photos. I have been looking up most of mine on Pexels.com, but I've also used Unsplash and Pixabay if I feel like I'm not finding exactly what I'm looking for on that one stock photography website. I just feel like you're safe from any kind of possible copyright issue if you do use photos from these websites as opposed to Pinterest or a normal Google image search. Okay, back to the design process. There are a couple of different ways that I'll sketch from the reference photos that I've saved, but both are based on the same concept of looking for the basic shapes in the head and body of the animal. If I'm drawing an animal for the first time, I'll often draw the shapes directly on the photo and then just incorporate my own styling to make them look more cartoonish. If I feel a little bit more comfortable with the animal, then I'll draw out the shapes separately. But I still look at the reference photo just to make sure I'm still incorporating some of the details that were part of the photo. So, like the same proportions, the position of ears or facial features, and stuff like that. Now, I've probably sketched out more than I really need, but that's okay. I'll have options to work with. This next part of the design process is my favorite part of the illustration process, and it's when I finally start to create the vector illustrations in Affinity Designer. For this type of illustration, where I'm creating different motifs for a repeat pattern, I'll go through each motif and draw out the basic shapes first. So I suppose that would be my tip to share for this part of the design process, which is to break up the vector illustration process into smaller steps. For me, it's drawing the basic shapes for each motif and then going back in to add the details, and this is also where I'll reorganize the layers and group things together so each motif is one group. For you, you might find it easier to do one entire motif all at once, so the shapes and the details before moving on to the next one. Once I have all these motifs done, I can now move on to creating the repeat pattern layout. For this part of the process, I'm going to use a handy tool called Symbols in Affinity Designer. Using symbols, I can actually see how the pattern tile is going to look after it's been repeated a bunch of times by duplicating the original symbol. For this particular pattern, I've decided to go with a half drop repeat, which means that I'm going to have the duplicated symbols to the left and right of the original positioned so the top of the duplicate is going to line up with the halfway mark on the original symbol. Now, a tip for this part of the process is to set up the pattern with those square symbols in a separate document and then save it as a template to use for future repeat patterns. This is actually what I used to do, but lately for full drop and half drop patterns, I find it just as easy just to set up the new symbols in the same document that I've done the motifs in. This is the final pattern that I came up with, and I actually did this in a couple of colorways. And that is the end of today's video, which is great because my food is ready and I am so hungry. I cannot wait to dig into this. This is what I ended up making. So I would like to know in the comments, what is an art challenge that you are currently participating in, or is there an art challenge that you are looking to participate in? So for those of you who have made it all the way to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. So yummy.